Good morning. It's Lisa. I'm in my kitchen and I am making some English muffins. So let me share with you. So this is a sourdough um, dough with my sourdough starter. And I can't just like get this in here, right? So you're just gonna see the top of all of what I'm doing, and I am under here. So it's pampered, not perfect. Sometimes our videos just get crazy. So this recipe I make all the time, and I need to use 1 teaspoon of salt, and I like to use a fairly decent salt. And then I'm going to need 1 teaspoon of baking soda. And I found a little trick, which I never used to use one of these to sift. And then I found that I would sometimes have clumps. So you just simply take your 1 teaspoon, this is baking soda. I'm gonna dump it in here. And then I'm just going to move it back and forth until it goes all the way through. And then there's no lumps. Super quick and easy. Next up is the honey. So we do 1 tablespoon of salt, 1 tablespoon of baking soda, 1 teaspoon of salt, 1 teaspoon of baking soda, and 1 tablespoon of honey. Of course, it's first thing in the morning, so it's hard for me to get functioning with my mouth, rhyming with the words, and it all making sense. So I'm doing a double batch because I usually give some away. My father loves these, so he usually gets some. My hands are a little sticky from my honey. But then I just want to incorporate this in, and I am going to use my hands, but at first, when I'm getting the honey incorporated in with the salt and the baking soda, I'm going to use my whisk. And this is a dough whisk. So it's got these cool little grooves and handles, and they kind of just grab and pull, which works really well. And sourdough is a fermented dough that has a little bit more goodness in it than regular bread. So I would buy English muffins every week, and I would eat one every day. And there's 6 in a package, and they're like, what, $5, probably $6 now. So I started, it was one thing I was like, okay, what can I make? I need to make these at home. This is something I buy at the store. I want to make these at home. So I dove into that sourdough journey, and here I am, just loving, loving, loving it. And I don't typically make the bread because we don't eat a lot of bread. So there's no sense in me eating it and throwing it away. So what we typically do is I have the English muffins. This recipe makes 12. I keep 6 out. I freeze 6. And if I'm making a double batch, I'm giving away the other 12. So if we do want bread, I'll make bread for special occasions. But typically, I don't have bread on hand because I found we were just throwing it away. So there's no sense of doing that. So this is a powdered sugar shaker from Pampered Chef. This one is white, but typically now that they're like an aluminum. But this is, I don't put powdered sugar in it. I put flour in it. So it works out really well for my dough when I'm making my muffins. I can powder, flour, everything. You see my dough is a little bit sticky. So I'm gonna add some flour to it so that I can work it. Because I want it to be, I'm gonna cut it into 12 pieces. So I wanna be able to work it, and I wanna be able to use my scraper to cut it. And you can see, like, you'll get pieces of the honey that's coming through where it's a little bit more wet. Now, I cook these in the cast iron with some coconut oil. And that feels pretty good, so I typically try to get it in half. Usually my first one is the smallest, so I usually will cut some from the last one and add it to that one. And then I just make them into little balls. And then I'm gonna heat some coconut oil in that frying pan. And they sit in there for 10 minutes, 5 minutes on one side, then you flip them over to the other side, and you only really want to flip them once. So you have to find that sweet spot with your stove and your iron and what temperature to put it on. And then after they're done in the cast iron, they go into the oven on 300 for 10 minutes. I'll be sure to share this in my comments, this recipe that I got. I think it's from the Farm on Boone was the recipe. The lady's name is Lisa, coincidence. I like her recipes because she measures out in cups and not weighing her dough and her starter and everything being weighed. I do have a scale, but I don't use it for my sourdough. I know a lot of people swear by that, but I've been having good luck without it. So it's really not as complicated as a lot of people make it out to be. That's only 5. So when that happens, we're gonna take some from here. This is where you've got to rob Peter to pay Paul to try to make them about the same size. So you just do it to make it work. And like I said, it's not perfect. And believe me, I've made these so many times. I've gotten so much better as to what the dough should feel like when I actually mix it at night. And then getting my hands into it in the morning. I wasn't using my hands. There's a few tricks that I learned, and that's just practice, and that's just what you learn over time. You know, we never started out knowing our ABCs. We had to practice them, and it's the same thing with anything else. I never started out knowing how to cook. I actually hated cooking. I was the cleanup crew for my mom when I was a teenager. I ate the food and then I hit the dishpan. I never helped her cook. So when I moved out, you know, I was on the phone with my mom. Hey, how do I make fried pork chops with mashed potatoes and gravy? Because that was like one of my favorite meals my mom would make. So I had to learn how to cook. The other thing was we lived in Florida, so everything in Florida is really convenient where we were. If we were going to softball that night, we would stop by and pick up a smoothie. That was our dinner. Living here in the country, I'm in East Tennessee, we can't do that. Your stores are half an hour away, and it's not that convenient to get there. So you definitely want to be prepared. So I have to prepare, like, what am I making tonight for dinner? I'm going to make some sourdough pasta, and I'm going to make some chicken Alfredo. I've got some Parmesan cheese I'm going to grind up. I'm going to make my own Alfredo sauce. So it's just sometimes you can make some things on your own, and it's going to taste 150% better. If you make your own Alfredo sauce, if you use real Parmesan cheese, grate it, use some heavy cream, I'm telling you, it's going to taste so much better than anything you can buy in the jar. Guaranteed. All right, so this is going to warm up. We've got to put some coconut oil in that pan and get that nice and hot. And then we're going to add in our first batch. This first 6 go in. I also started the oven on 300 so that can heat up so it can cook them when we're ready. All right. So now I just have some regular coconut oil that I cook with. Add it into my pan. Let that get really nice and hot. And then these are going to go in. They're going to cook. I usually set the timer for 5 minutes. I let them cook on one side for 5 minutes, and then I flip them over onto the other side for the remaining 5 minutes. And then into the pan they're going to go. I'm going to use my baking sheet. And then they'll go on these, and they'll go in the oven for 10 minutes on 300 degrees. And they turn out absolutely amazing. You can brown the bottoms in the cast iron. They get a little puffed up because they're cooking in the warm cast iron. And the results are amazing, to say the least. So this was one thing that I decided, like I said, I wanted to learn how to cook because it was something I bought every day at the store. And these are going to go into the pan. And I can typically turn it up, let it get a little bit warm, and then turn my heat back down. So cast iron, it holds the heat. I don't know who else loves to cook with cast iron. It has got to be one of my favorites. I put my stainless steel nonstick away. I usually only use my cast iron. That's my love right now. Let me see if I can adjust this so that we are a little bit better. There. Okay, so hopefully it doesn't fall, but we're going to cook some of my English muffins. When this starts to get a little bit warmer, I'm going to turn it down to a 2. And then I'm going to start putting these in. And they just go right in just like that. Really easy. I hope everybody's having a great morning. I'm here in my jammies, hanging out with you, cooking some English muffins. I've got some Christmas wrapping going on, getting ahead as much as I can. So that's 6. So now I'm going to set the timer for 5 minutes, and after 5 minutes, I'm going to flip them over. And in the meantime, I can start on my second dough. So I'm going to do the same thing. We've got our teaspoon of salt. Our baking soda. And don't forget to sift it so that you don't have any clumps. Takes 2 seconds and it makes your life much easier. Believe me when I tell you. And then this is the measuring spoon from Pampered Chef, which you can measure and you can slide this, and it pushes, especially honey that's thick, it's going to push it right out, right off the spoon. So it works out really well. Pushes it right out. They're called the adjustable spoons, measuring spoons. So if you need a tablespoon and a half, you can use this hole. If you need 2 tablespoons, you use this. If you need 2.5 tablespoons, you can use this one measuring spoon for 2.5, which is kind of cool, which typically you would need 2. And again, we're going to mix. There is something special for me when I wake up in the morning and I realize I have dough to play with. It makes me happy. So when you find something that makes you happy, continue doing it. It just will make your heart swell. And then when I can make these English muffins and I hand them out to my neighbors and my parents and my friends, I love sharing them. So this year for Christmas, I threw together some baskets or some bags, and I threw in some jam that I made, some mixed jam, and then I did some jam with blueberries, raspberries, and blackberries, strawberries, and then I also did some with cranberries and blueberries. So that's really good. So it's just something homemade. Let's get back to making homemade gifts. Who's with me with that? It's just so much better. All right, we're looking pretty good here. I'm going to move some of these over out of my way. You can hear these sizzling, and you'll see they're getting they'll get bigger and puffier. These kind of are looking a little flat, which the dough can be a little wet and that can happen. But it's okay, guess what? They all taste the same. Wonderful. So this is empty, so you just simply take the top off, and I'm gonna add in some more flour. This has been a savior for me. I used to have my powdered sugar in it, but I was never really using it unless it was Christmas time or for maybe a dessert and I needed to, you know, throw some powder on top of it. So I was like, wait a minute, I saw somebody use this for flour. I was like, oh yeah, this girl's doing that. I love those tips where you figure out you can use a product for something and it's really, really helpful for you. See on the inside, it's really wet. I'm gonna get some more of that flour in there. And you're turning it into itself, which helps blend it and actually get all that flour incorporated in. And it feels great. Some people don't like the feel of dough on their hands. We're going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. 6 is a little small. So let's take some from this one, maybe some from this one. And we'll do these. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So this one, definitely big. All right, it's time to flip. You see your bottoms are a little brown. You flip them and hope that you got room. This is another thing that takes practice. I've stuck them to the side of the pan. And then we're gonna set it for another time, 5 minutes. Now you're gonna watch them puff up a lot more this time. So let's get back to all right, so I can see I've got one that is extremely large. And these are kind of they're flatter. So what happens when they flatten out on me is the dough was too wet. So just another example of living and learning. Roll it into a semicircle kind of shape. Toss it with a little bit of flour. The flour keeps it from sticking to your hands when you plop them in the pan. Let me get to this big one over here. Now you can see this one right there is just a little bit bigger, so I'm going to remove some of that and put it in one of the other ones. I usually make a mess on the floor, but you can't do a good job in your kitchen if it's clean at the end. You got to use everything, right? So I'm so thankful that you're hanging out with me today, watching me make my English muffins. This has been such a wonderful journey for me, and I will put the recipe in the captions below in the comments. Now, this is one thing, and I love to inspire people. So this might inspire you to cook something that you buy at the store. Cook it at home instead of buying it in the box. It might inspire you to do that. Maybe you do English muffins. Maybe you want to use instant yeast, which you could do that just as well. You get used to making dough with instant yeast. That's how I started out. I worked on a bread recipe until I got it, and it was with regular instant yeast until I kind of perfected that. And then I thought I had grown a little braver, and I decided to dive into this sourdough world. So sometimes, you know, you never know where it's going to lead you. I never would have imagined in a million years that I would be in my kitchen cooking and doing videos about it, sharing it with the world, hoping to inspire somebody. Never in a million years thought that. So never say never. You can do anything that you put your mind to. We are born in a generation where we are handed lots of opportunities. If we don't take that opportunity, it's our own fault. You are given many, many choices to learn new things, and you should learn them. You're never too old to learn. I am 53 years old, and I am learning how to bake in my kitchen every day. I'm learning something new. There's nothing wrong with that. So these are getting a little hot. I can smell them. And we're gonna look at the bottom because we don't want, yep, our bottoms are getting brown. So I'm just gonna flip a couple of these over. I wanna see what they're doing. This one is stuck to this one. Hey now, can't stick together. See, they're ready to come out. They're a little frosted on that, toasted on that one side. So this just makes it really good. So I'm gonna take these out. These actually came out really pretty. And I do use my cast iron on my glass top stove. When I bought this house, this stove was here. It was already scratched up. But if you use cast iron on your glass top, you pick it up and move it. You don't slide it. You saw me just slide it. It's because my stove is already scratched. But you should typically pick it up and move it rather than slide it to save your glass top. A lot of people are afraid to use cast iron on glass top. You just have to be careful not to scratch it. And the health benefits of using cast iron versus a non-stick are well worth anything I might do to my stove. That's all I have to say. Okay, so the next 6 are going in. 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. There's 5, and I'm going to turn this down a little bit more because as it cooks, this cast iron pan retains the heat. So this might get warmer and warmer. So it's just one thing you might want to adjust your heat, especially if you're using cast iron. I'm going to let these cook for the 5 minutes, and then I'm going to turn them over and cook the other side. And then this pan is going to be ready to go in the oven, and then I'm going to repeat with the rest of them. So I hope everybody is having a wonderful day. Enjoy this Tuesday. Make it productive. I'm getting all this goodness off my hands. And if your cast iron gets a little bit too warm, sometimes I do this. I'll take it up off the heat for a few minutes and let it cool down a little bit because you can see it's pretty warm. And I have adjusted that heat down a little bit, but we'll see. So I hope everybody enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. It's been a pleasure to be here with you. I hope I have inspired you to cook something on your own. Thank you very much for being here. Bye-bye.